everyone? Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 44. I have another one of my really good friends on, John Pajak. John has been in the industry for a really long time. I'll let him tell the story, but he's a business owner like the rest of us. He's in the lawn care industry. He owns Turf Tamer Lawn Care. He also has Profits with Pajak podcast, which I listen to quite often. It's great. And johnpajak.com, where he does more of like financials, right? Like a personal financial coach. I'll let him tell everything that he's got going on. It's been a few years since we've actually talked on the phone. I think maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I don't know where it's been now.
Yeah, it's been a little while, man.
But man, we both have a lot going on. So like I'm ready to catch up. I'm excited to see what you have going on. You're always doing big things. So welcome to the show, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jonas. I'll tell you what, man, it's like the like you said, like the 2 years, 1 year, whatever it has been since the last time we spoke. It's like time passes by, but the funny thing is we just pick it up like nothing happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
It's just,
I remember the first time we met.
Yeah.
We were at Service Autopilot conference.
It was SA7. It was 2017.
I think it was SA2. SA2 or 3. But yeah, like 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I've got the number wrong, but that's right. I forgot that was in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, in Dallas, Texas, and we were all at a restaurant, and you were sitting at the end of the table by me, and then we just started talking, and next thing you know, we kept talking and talking and talking, and now we're 6 years later, and here we are still talking again.
You know what? I always forget this too, and not that it's a big thing, but there was a time I think I was talking about salt brine,
yes,
a lot, and then all of a sudden you came out with that really cool de-icing rig that had the swivel on the back, and I thought that was so ingenious. And I'm sitting there talking about it. I'm like, yeah, if you need help with that, if you need help with like the calibrations, you're like, hey, yeah, I know. You told me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and, there's one of those things that I did in the past that, I spent a lot of time on it, a lot of money on it. I'm a high-end implementer, so I love to tinker, I love to do things. That was just a bunch of projects that I put together and ended up selling off that company, but it was fun while I did it. And I learned a ton about de-icing. I learned a ton about building sprayers. Again, was it worth my time? Probably not, but I was young and it was fun. I learned a lot.
Well, not only that, but everyone, I believe, they have to go through a series of things because, a lot of times we go into business and we think, or we're going to start a project or we're going to start something that's an interest of ours. We think that that's what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. And a lot of times I find that's just the path, like that is just one step to get to where you're going to be in the future. And the reason I bring that up is because, like, just to kind of give you a quick backstory on me, how I got to being a coach at this point in time, it's been a story kind of like that, where I was in the lawn care industry, in the 90s, working for somebody else, decided I could do this for myself. I started a business that failed miserably, and luckily I was able to kind of catch myself pretty quick. I didn't lose a ton of money on it, but from there I went into teaching. I was a instructor at this college for a little while. Then I got tired of doing that. I was getting burnt out. I ended up going into construction, was working as a laborer, but then I ended up in the office doing estimates for $1 million projects and things. Then I got tired of doing that, and I decided to come back into the lawn care industry and into the green industry. And I was doing that. I opened that business, was doing well, and then all of a sudden things shifted again, and I realized I wanted to help others. And it's just so funny. Like, while you're going through it, you don't realize that these are the steps that build you so that you get to, where God wants to take you. But then when you look back, it's almost like a 2020. It's like, and I mean that 2020 vision, hindsight's 2020, not the year 2020. But you look back and you're like, I couldn't be where I'm at right now if I didn't do these things. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
I couldn't teach people, or I wouldn't have the skill set to do what I do now. So, you know, when you were doing the sprayers and everything, I could just look at that as like another, that was a component that you did to move on to where you're at now, even though you're not doing anything remotely like that. You know,
it's crazy. It's just the process in life, like you said, and and I learned a lot. But the business that I had at that time, we did a lot of salting, we did a lot of de-icing. So what else do you do when it's slow and it's winter time? Like nothing. It's kind of I'm not one to sit around. So it's like, oh, instead of buying a spray, I'll just figure out how to make these things. So I did, and it was fun. I learned a lot, and made a lot of money de-icing. Profits are really high. That was all good, but it could have my time been better spent working on the business, of course. But again, that was the business that I had then. It's not the business that I have now. I sold the business a couple years ago, and now I know that about myself. Like I'm high and quick start, so I like the shiny objects. I like to chase things. High and implementer. Somebody's like, I don't like to delegate it. Like I like to have my hands and stuff. I like to tinker, stuff like that. But now that I know that about myself, I'm like, okay, no, I'm just gonna stay focused on what we're doing now and get really, really good at this one thing. And that's how I've been able to scale, but it just took me through those processes of learning to get to where I'm at today. It's kind of like my journey,
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, just think about I think a lot of us are like that too, where even if we end up handing off a task or a duty to someone else, I still want to know enough about it to be either dangerous or proficient in it.
Yeah.
So I will, a lot of times people ask me why, like, how do I know so much? I'm like, well, first of all, it comes with age. As you get older, you just have experiences and things. You live life. You go through all the emotions. You go through all the, the trials and errors. I just say the, blood, sweat, tears, and years of life, all the lessons that you get taught. But, no matter what, like, especially in business, just about anything I do, I kind of dive deep into it, even if I know it's not going to be something that's going to be with me for a really long time. Like I said, I want to know enough about it to where I could hold my own. And then I know what the expectations are when I hand that off when I delegate that to someone else.
Yep.
So if it's a sales position or if it's an office manager or even just a technician, I want to be in that position just for a little while, just to know and understand what the workings are of it. And that way I could, empathize with somebody when they're going through it.
Yeah, no,
it's like,
I agree.
All right, I don't have hands on this anymore, but I know, I understand all the things that you're going through and what this job entails. So it's like, all right, if you need a little bit of guidance here's how I could help you, or maybe you just need to vent a little. And it's like, yeah, I've been there, and here's a story of like what happened to me when I was in your position.
Right. So. Yeah, now it's to the point where like there's some things that I don't ever want to know, don't care to know. Like I'm just gonna hire the person who knows way more than I'll ever know, and they'll teach me along the way. And that's kind of like the whole financial side. Like I'm never gonna be better than my CFO at that job ever. Like he's been doing it for 40 years. Like I'm never gonna be better. But that's why I have him around. Like my director of operations. She's ran operations for multi-million-dollar companies. Like she's great at her job. Like, yeah, I know how to do it, but they're way better at it. They can just, if I want to know something, they'll just tell me the answer.
Yeah, and yeah, I think I'm going to sound like I waffle a little bit here, but you're right. There are some jobs that I just don't ever want to do. Yeah. One of which is like I think when it comes to, I like technology, but there's certain parts of technology that I don't care to do at all. And like that stuff, I have no problem being like, yeah, I don't care. Just this is the end result that I'd like to have. And is this possible? Okay, it's possible. All right, can you just do this, please? Because I don't care about code or anything like that. Just This is what I want. I want this shiny thing to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you could do that, then you're
Perfect.
You're good to go.
It's like being an entomologist. Like, I'm never going to be an entomologist ever. Don't want to be an entomologist. I don't care about bugs that much, you know. Like, again, just hire those people that are really, really good at their specific thing. Let them run with it, and they can just kind of teach me along the way. Like, oh yeah, sounds good, great. Moving on, you know. Yeah. So, Johnny, you kind of told us like a little bit of your story, but let's rewind a little bit. Just kind of tell us how you got into the industry. Sure. And I know you fell in love with it. You've been in the industry a long time, so just kind of walk us through what happened, like how you got in here and you started your company Turf Tamer, and just walk us through.
Well, look, going back, like most guys, I think when you work for someone else, I was like the right-hand guy. You know, I was leading crews and, you know, worked my way up from just being in the truck to, hey, I'm actually driving the truck and making sure work gets done. And then we get smacked in the face going, you know, so we get this dumb idea going, hey, maybe we can make more money. We could do this, you know, I'm going to make money. But, you know, I'm looking at what my boss charges and stuff. I'm like, well, I could do that. That's like double what I make in an hour. So fell into that trap originally. So on the side, I started my own business, and that's why I didn't fall when I mentioned I didn't fall too hard. It was because I kind of did it part-time. So I was working like 7 days a week, which is something that I wasn't, you know, back then I was not afraid of doing. But, you know, I had a fistful of accounts, and I was probably, you know, now that looking back at this is probably the wrong thing to do, but I was, you know, borrowing some equipment from the business. You know, I had mentioned it to my boss, and he was like, oh, all right, yeah, you could take this machine, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you shouldn't do that. You know, it's like funding a direct competitor in a sense. But anyway, I didn't really know my numbers back then. And I know that that's a key word that, you know, it's a phrase that gets kicked around. And that's why I, you know, try not to say it as much. But it's true, you know, to just get that message across. I didn't know how to be a business owner back then. I just knew I was a good technician. And I thought that if you're just really good at your job, that you would be successful. And I don't know if you've had that experience or not, where you tried to do something and you, you know, it backfires on you. The jobs were getting done and everything was great, but, you know, big part was billing. I didn't really have a process. I didn't have a system in place, and a lot of money was getting, you know, was sliding through my fingers, doing a lot of work that wasn't getting paid for. And this was the same thing, because I was basically mimicking what my boss was doing. And he was like, well, you know, we bill at the end of the month. We have a few people that are late. And it's at one point, while I was working for him, instead of doing my work, I was spending a ton of time. He was like, hey, in between jobs, you know, I would drop the crew off. He goes, go down the street. You know, I had a list, and this is before cell phones, you know, and he would tell me, he's like, here's the list. He goes, these are the people that owe money. Drop the guys off and then go collect money. You know, try to shake these people down for what they owe us, because they're like 2 or 3 months behind, and we're still mowing their lawn. I don't know. I never understood that concept, but, so I'm looking up to him, and I'm seeing what he's doing. So I mimicked that, and then it just led me to ruination. You know, like it was just, that's what really sank me, was cash flow, you know. And there were some other things too, but it's not rocket science when it comes down to, you know, mowing lawns, but there is an art to it.
For sure. So it brings up like a couple of quick topics. Like, I remember, just starting out, didn't have service autopilot, and I was like bouncing my head off the wall. Everything's like Excel spreadsheet. And then I was getting home at night, and I was running through my QuickBooks, super tired. You know, my invoice should have been out last week, but now they're 2 weeks late. and they're kind of sporadic all over the place. Like then people are getting pissed off because they don't get their bills on time, or they'll get one bill for like 2 months in a row, and so instead of $1,000, now it's $2,000. Like now they're mad again. So yeah, all those things like first starting out happened to me too. You know, so. And then brought up another. We did a podcast yesterday. The same thing. A kid was spending his Saturdays. He thought it was super cool, just chilling in his car, going to collect money. He's like, "That's the coolest thing in the world, is being a high schooler. It's like owning his own business. His whole Saturdays were spent collecting AR." So yeah, brings up a lot of good topics. You know.
Yeah, dude. I'm just saying. You know, like nowadays, like the funny thing is when you fail and then you come back and you have the determination to fix the mistakes that you made. It took me a long time to come back around to wanting to own a business again. But that wasn't even a real business when I look back at it. It's like, yeah, you know, I thought it was, but in reality it wasn't. Right. Now it's like totally different. You know, it's like, this is a legit business. Right. You know, I spend 5 minutes a day billing out. You know, I still do our billings. I could just pull everything up. You know, we use a CRM that allows me to just have cards on file. We were able to just, you know, click a few buttons, charge out all those, and basically I just send those paid receipts, and it's like 5 minutes a day, and our cash flow is coming in. You know, so it's like lesson learned. That was like the biggest thing for me, was making sure we were never chasing money, because originally when I started Turf Tamer, it was before card on file was available to us, and I was doing prepay only. And some people are like, "You can't do that." I said, "Watch me." And, you know, I walked into it and I said, "This is what is going to happen. We're not billing at the end of the month. We're billing at the beginning of the month for anticipated services. So if you want our maintenance service, well, here's the price for the month." And, you know, after the first month, you know, people, they just they were falling into the plan, because it was just like, they didn't even see it as prepaying anymore. They're just like, "Oh, my bill's due on April 1st. My bill's due at the first of the month. It doesn't matter," you know. I know I've kind of walked off whatever the first topic.
Keep growing. It's good.
Answering, but, you know, I think, you know, especially in this industry, it's important to focus on systems like that. You know, and I know we kick terms like systems around a lot.
It's like a buzzword these days.
It's a standard operating procedure. You know, it's just the way that you do something. It doesn't have, you know, when I through my coaching, I've mentioned that a lot to folks, and I realized I have to start being more simplistic with it, just because when I say systems, it puts this this mental image in their head.
It's something big and massive,
big crazy thing that they need to do, and then they get hung up on it, and then they like shut down. And I'm like, no. How about you teach me how to make a cup of coffee? Show me how to make a cup of coffee. You know, and then I'm like, just walk me through that process. And then, you know, they go through it, and then it's just like, okay, what if I wanted cream and sugar in it? And they're like, okay. I'm like, just write this whole thing down. You know, like, I'm like that, and then we get through the whole exercise, and then I'm like, all right, you got that all written down. We have this all templated out now. You just, guess what? You just created a system. So all you have to do is kind of like repeat this, you know, rinse, lather, repeat, or however you want to say it. It's like for just all the small things that you have in your business. And guess what? You're going to eventually have like this awesome manual that you could, now that you have things documented in the way that you want them done, in the way that they're normally done. Now you could start delegating these things to other people. Be like, how do you answer the phone? You know, for the lawn care business, Turf Tamer Lawn Care, this is John. How can I help you? People are like, well, you're just answering the phone. I'm like, that's part of our system.
Right.
That's part of the system that we use to greet somebody that's calling us.
Yeah, it's it's again, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be some
exactly.
elaborate thing, but like you say system, and it's like, oh yeah, it sounds way too big. They shut down because like, oh, how do you eat an elephant? Just start with one bite, but it's just literally that small little thing that you just write down. Just a process, you
Mhm.
know. Cool. So then you got into the business. Cash flow is one of your pain points. So like, okay, I'm gonna get back into the tariff tamer. We're never gonna have a cash flow problem again. Um, but were you doing maintenance and fertilization weed control at that time, or was it just maintenance? What was that? What was your revenue split?
Originally, it was all I had this grandeur idea of turning it into like a one-stop shop. And instead of focusing on one thing and then getting good at it and then moving on to the next, I kind of shotgunned it right out in the beginning. And you know, when you're first starting out and you're pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, self-funding the business, that first year you kind of do a lot of dumb things where you're taking on jobs you probably shouldn't,
Just to get cash.
and just to get the cash coming in. Um, but really, the first say year, 2 years, we focused just mainly on mowing. And after a while, I was like, man, there's a lot of missed opportunity here. Like we had bush trimming and other maintenance involved, but at the time it was just, you know, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, which was fertilization and weed control. And then over the next few years, I transitioned the business to where that's pretty much all we did. You know, we got rid of. I would just sit there and look at it, and I was kind of bad at it too, because when you're first starting the business, it was kind of hard to just take a look at everything monthly. Uh, you know, for me, I was wearing all the hats and doing everything, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just let this go for this season, and then I'll start looking at what our top products are or what our top services are. And we were doing a lot of business in mowing, but our margins, even though they were profitable, it's like, man, for the amount of time and equipment and everything that we have allocated towards this one service, the margins aren't that great. You know, we could, if I had a different business that would be able to, you know, allocate um, different resources, still use maybe the same time from labor, but the margins are better. It would be a much, in my opinion, I was looking at it like this would be a better service to get into. So when I was really crunching the numbers on it, I'm like, you know what? I like doing fertilization and weed control. So let's pivot into that. And that's basically what I did. It took a few years to really kind of I was really bad about, and I'm still bad about it, drawing like a hard line and saying, okay, we're going to stop doing this service. We're going to discontinue this. We're going to phase it out. Or I was in the phase out period. I wasn't in the hard line, like we're not doing this anymore. I would just kind of phase people out of it. And, you know, that's when you look at it in retrospect, you look at it and you go, man, that's cost me quite a bit of money, just because I'm allocating all the time and labor and the resources to a service that, you know, I'm competing with like 14-year-old kids that are ambitious, you know.
Sure. And I was the total opposite. I was like, hard stop,
Mm-hmm.
go backwards, you know, a couple $1 million to go forward. So that was risky too, right? So, I mean, ultimately it worked out, not, you know, thank God. But my back was against the wall. I didn't really have a choice. So like, I have to make this work. So yeah, like
Right.
I can see your point of view, and my point of view is a little bit different. That's what I did. Is what you did. Again, it could have went haywire too for me, but luckily it didn't.
Man, I'll tell you, I really wish I would have done the hard stop.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been a lot easier. I mean, I remember we had 4 trucks set up with everything. I had like a whole street. Still have it. It's you know, part of our systems. It's streamlined, like mowing crew. You know, our ideal crew is a 2-man crew. It doesn't matter what truck it is. It could be a half ton or it could be full ton, whatever. I generally stuck to like half tons with that crew. They still pulled trailers, but we had a 52 and a 36-inch mower on it. You know, the weed whips, the blowers, and that was it. The fuel that we needed, it was like super streamlined. You see these guys that are rolling around and they got rolling warehouses, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but we were like lean, mean fighting machines, and it's like, this is it. This is the scalable model that we came up with. And you know, when I started to phase things out instead of like just saying, all right, we're going to burn the ships, you know, when when we got to America, we're not going back home. We're burning the ships, and we're gonna either live or we're gonna die on this. I just was like, all right, I'll sell like this package is getting sold off, and this package is getting sold off. I'll just keep a few just because whatever. Man, I'll tell you what, when you have a foot in the, when you got to tow in and out of the water, or if you're sitting on the fence about it, you got one leg on either side. Sometimes that is like the worst thing you could do, because all you're doing is like prolonging.
Because you'll get a really good job that comes in. Like, man, this could be really good for us. Like, but I kind of want to get out of it. But man, the money looks really good. Or this is a really high end job. We should take it. Next thing you know, you're back into it.
Right.
Because you have the equipment.
Exactly. Because like you said, you know, if you're sitting on the fence and something comes along and grabs your leg, and it's like, well, I don't do that anymore. It's like, well, you're here, you're in this space, and then they pull you, and then all of a sudden, instead of you being like, I'm hopping on this other side where the grass is greener or whatever you want to say, it's like, no, they pull you back in, and now it's like, how long is it going to take me to flip back over that fence again?
Yeah, for sure. You know? So you're mainly, quotation marks, fertilization weed control, or are you all fertilization weed control now?
I am such a baby about it. I have 7 lawns.
Nice.
They are the legacy people. They've been with me forever. Okay. And I just did a show about this, and I'm like, yeah, I am going to finally follow my own advice. And it was a whole show just about how to walk out of that, you know, be respectful, be professional. But here's this is the letter that's getting sent out at the end of the season, because I have, I've made promises. Yep. I'm going to live up. I'm going to fulfill my promises for the rest of the season. But next year, those, we're just not going to offer that service anymore. Sure.
Are you going to give them just some people that you recommend? Say, hey, these are the top.
Yeah. And I have, I was trying to just subcontract this. There's 2 people that I was trying to subcontract or give them accounts to. They would still be under. Yeah. I would like, I'll take care of all the billing. I will pay you, whatever your fee is. I'll take care of the billing, and it'll still technically, be under my umbrella because they have other services with us. And he's a younger guy, and he's just kind of like, I don't know. I just want it all. And I'm like, I can refer you to them, but I don't know if they'll take you. So I'm like, this way you're getting guaranteed money as long as they're clients of ours. But if you want to go on your own and see if they'll hire you, then it's back in the open water for you.
For sure. What year did you start? What year did you start the Turf Tamer lawn care?
Turf Tamer started in 2015. Nice. As a matter of fact, August. It was August of 2015. So we're this is our birthday. Mm-hmm. I think that's when I filed paperwork or something.
That's awesome. So you thought it'd be a good idea to start a lawn care business in August?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. The reason that happened, I was yeah, a lot of people are like, what, August? I'm like, just there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Like, I walked away from a really good construction job. I mean, I was, a union laborer. But like I said, most of the jobs I was doing, I was working in office, and I was doing estimates. It was crazy. There was 2 companies ended up using me as a timekeeper. So I had a whole skill set that I learned doing that. But then, because I don't know how I got into the estimating part, but I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. I think it was because I was doing the timekeeping that I was going into the big office all the time to drop off timesheets and fix problems. You know how it is. Like you start doing one job and then people start asking you for other things, and then it just progresses into a different, profession almost. But anyway, I was talking to some of the guys that did the estimates, and I was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing all this? Oh, this is $1.4 million job we're bidding on." I'm like, "Cool. Like, how do you put that together?" And then I just kind of saw how they did it, and it just started clicking, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I got a shot at it, and it was crazy. It was, for me, I'm thinking this is like so much money, and it was like 160. It was somewhere in like $160,000 job. This is just a very small project in the scope of work that we were doing, but they were like, "Hey, why don't you?" They're asking for bids for this. Why don't you do it? We'll give this to you. And I'm like, "Yeah." So I went. It's funny. I went through that whole process, and it's like, you remember like how like I don't know if you ever went through this, but like when you first started your business, like you're racking your brain on like what to charge, and like, okay, well, I don't know how scientific you went about it, but it's like, trying to put all the pieces together to figure out what your pricing was going to be.
I'm a quick start, so I just basically copying what everyone else is doing. Obviously, the wrong way.
At this point, there's no one to copy from. I'm like, well, what's the other crew do? Like, what's that other company doing? And they're like, we don't talk about that. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, we put the bids in, but they read them off, but like, we don't know what their process is. Sometimes it's close. Sometimes it's, we don't know. We don't know exactly what they're bidding on. So I'm like, this sucks. So I was like, at that point I made a system. I'm like, well, what equipment are we going to be using? How many guys do we need? What work are we doing? And, do we have experience in this job? And it's like, oh yeah, here are other jobs we did. And this is like approximate man hours and everything. And that's how I started to, kind of piece everything together, where it's like, okay, this is your, these are our production rates, and based off of production rates, and I know how much stuff costs per hour and everything. I'm like, all right, let me put all this together. And the cool thing was, like, I ended up winning that first bid that they gave me, and we came in on budget on it. So they were like, let's give them another shot at it. And then I did more. I kept going more and more, until like I was doing, I forgot how big I'm trying to remember the price tag on the one. It was a multi-million-dollar job that we bid on, and we ended up getting it. And I was just like, this is awesome. And then I realized, I'm not getting paid any extra for it or anything like that. But that was just a job. But anyway, long story short, what's cool about that whole experience is, like, we were talking before about how things in the past and the path that you take,
easy to where you're at
you
today.
may not see it when it's right in front of you, but in hindsight, you look back and go, I needed to be there in order to get where I'm at today. And then when I started Turf Tamer in August, like, why would you start a lawn care company in the middle of the summer, end of summer? Things were going on. I was back in the field, and a bunch of weird stuff was going on. I was getting hurt a lot, and it wasn't because of my negligence. It was because of other people not looking out for me. But I was like, you know what? I've never got almost killed in lawn care, so let me go back to that. And that's how that's when I started it. And I've got, at the time, my daughter was 2 years old. Yeah, my daughter was 2 at the time. And I was like, yeah, I can't be doing this. I need to be home.
Yeah, I remember being on those early phone calls with you. Like, your daughter was 3 or 4. We were talking, she'd be running out of your office, and you would be cooking something, and she'd come running in.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember those days.
But Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's like how I realize now, like when I go back, because instead of just saying, "Hey, know your numbers," I have the budgets, break evens, and bottom lines
Mhm.
workshop that I take guys through, and it really helps break that down because it's not just it's more of a financial. It's I call it financial coaching, but it's really not a financial coaching. It's really a financial consulting, and uh, it's kind of advanced from those days when, you brought it up earlier, like when I would go to people's shops and like try to help them with things. And it's like I was doing that like a long time ago. Those were like, uh the Facebook day lawn digest. Then I would do the whiteboard
Yeah.
Wednesdays in lawn digest. That was a Facebook group. It's still a Facebook group. I don't think it's as, I haven't really been part of that group for a very long time, but that was a kind of a kickstart for me just to get while getting into the coaching while I was running the turf tamer. Then it was like, oh, I was helping others get them up to a certain level. And
So when you went to
I'll tell
when
you
you
what,
went into these businesses, like you were there to like look at their operations. Remember right? Like you were there to like try to fix or like kind of walk us through that. Like I knew a little bit of what you're doing because I saw it on Facebook or whatever, but I didn't know exactly what your job was or what you were doing at the time. Or
the funny thing is, most of that it was not, I wasn't really charging for that much. That was because that was back in the day. That was like 2017, 2018, something like that. And I was spending a ton of time. Like people would invite me. They're like, "Hey, can you come out here and check us out?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "You're the Whiteboard Wednesday guy." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." "Hey, can you help us?" Okay, let me come over there. And then I go to these guys' shops, and it's like I didn't realize it at the time, but I would go into somebody's shop and I would automatically start seeing like all the things that were wrong. And and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like I mean this like, well, there's only one right way to do things. I'm like just watching, I would just kind of like see how they would have things set up, and I'm like, this is not efficient. You know, the way that they would have things stored, or they would start cracking open their books to like kind of show me what they would do. And I mean, there was a multitude of things. There was so many things, but I had one guy, I've told this story before, where he invited me to his shop to like kind of do an audit in a sense. Like, look, where can I make how can I make more money? I'm stuck. It's like I'm doing everything I should be doing, but for some reason, like I'm just looking at what's in the bank account and it is not matching what we should have. I'm like, oh, all right. I started looking at things. He's showing me all around, and he had a pretty nice shop, and he had this one area that was kind of like an older. It was connected to the new part of the shop, but it was kind of like an older part, and I just remember there was like tarps or something that were like hanging down and to like kind of block that area off. And I look and I just happen to see all these plastic, I could tell that there's machines and they're all plastic wrapped and on pallets. I'm like, what's all that? And he's like, oh yeah, those are the backup machines. And I'm like your used machines or something? And he goes, no, I just bought like 13 right standers and they're just sitting there. And I'm like, for what?
unreal.
He's like, well, we need backups. So I'm like, how old are your new one? Or like, how old are the ones that are in the field? And he's just like, I'm like, and they were not that old. It's not, but I'm like, why aren't these in production? He's like, well, I needed the write off. And I'm like, you like, but the worst part is he financed all that. I'm like, if you needed the write off, you should have paid cash for these damn things, You got 13 pieces of equipment that are brand new, not doing anything. It took a while to get him straightened up because like he didn't quite grasp that he was writing everything off in the single year, but he was financing it for the 4 years, and it wasn't like it wasn't 0%. You know, like how Sheffield will have 0% financing, how they used to offer that. I don't even think they do that anymore. But I was like, you understand, you're making payments on these. The only thing you could do now is you could only write off you can't write that payment off every year. You already took everything in the first year. And I got to mention this. I am not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. So for these types of things, I still want to recommend that you seek those professionals out. But I'm like, look, dude, I know that you can't, you already claimed it this year. The next 4 years, you can't claim your payments. You could only claim like the interest that you paid on it. And it was such a nightmare for him. But yeah, it was things like that going into people's businesses, and then just kind of helping them identify where they could be more efficient, or, you know, save money, be more profitable, streamlining, just a whole category of things. But
I'm sure you learned a lot in that process too. And how long did you do that for?
I did that I did that all the way up until the summer of 2019. And then I was realizing, like, for me, I was spending all this time traveling and going to other people's businesses and trying to fix their business. I'm like, I'm not doing enough for me, you know? And
you also said you weren't really charging, if anything,
some people I wasn't even charging. Some people, the only thing I was really charging was like I'm showing up kind of fee, you know? But you know, it's like you live and you learn. It's like my wife is a wonderful woman, and she was kind of quiet about it, but at the same time, she's like, you do all these things for other people, and you're not doing your job to take. And she didn't say it in like any kind of spiteful way, but she really made me realize it's like, yeah, I dedicate a lot of time to other people, and a lot of times I don't get compensated for it. And it's like, yeah, that's my choice to do that, but at the same time, I have a family.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to take care of them.
Why do you think why do you think you weren't charging them?
I think I was, you know, at the point I didn't see the value I was bringing them, and I didn't feel like that was something that, you know, I wouldn't pay for that. So why would somebody else pay for that? It was that kind of mentality. And it's like mowing a lawn. Like, why would I ever pay anybody to mow my lawn? I could do that. You know, it's just kind of like the stupid things that sometimes we get in our heads.
Yeah, so it's like an imposter syndrome, right? It's like you don't think you're good enough.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah. I am totally guilty of that, and I've even talked to my wife extensively about that. I'm like,
I think we all go through it. We really do. I'd say not all, but majority of us all go through it. Like, we aren't worth enough. You know what I mean? We fight those demons too.
Yeah, it's just like with the coaching now. It's like, when I finally set price points for it, you know, some people, they look at it and they're like, oh man, that's crazy. I can't believe you're going to charge me that much just to talk to me for a couple hours, or, you know, like 90 minutes. And I'm like, well, that's okay. I understand that's a lot of money for you, but you're going to get a lot out. It's, you know, I try to save people years, you know, not the blood, sweat, but the tears and years, I try to save them from some of that. I still think that, you know, some of the best learning experiences in my life have been the most painful ones.
Absolutely.
And I always bring up, like, if, you know, there's a toddler and mom tells the kid, don't touch the hot stove, and the kid won't understand that until they reach up, grab the pan or touch the actual burner and burn themselves. It's like, mom told you like 5 times not to do it. You couldn't understand why until you felt that pain.
Yeah, like Dalton and I were talking about it yesterday, because, you know, Dalton, I found Dalton he was working at FedEx. And so he's now been on every podcast, listened to everyone speak, of my friends talk. He's like, dude, it was a dumb tax. He's like, literally paid a dumb tax just to speed up the process. I was like, I coached my brother-in-law and my stepbrother, I should say, and one of my best friends from high school. Tripled their business in a year just by talking to them for a few months. But it's just that dumb tax to pay. So when people hit me up on Instagram saying, hey, do you want to chat? I'm like, sure. Here's here's so much it's going to cost to talk to me for an hour. They're like, well, I ain't going to pay that. Well, that's fine. But in that hour conversation, I could save them so much time and bring so much value. It's worth the money all day long. Like, I needed a coach. I still have coaches. Like, and I'm never not going to have coaches ever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, I know if I honestly, I should probably, to add to our arsenal, I know I should probably just give you a call and be like, look, let's spend a couple hours together. Here's whatever the fee is. That's what it is. See, I want to know when you go and you're doing knocking on doors, cold calling, I know you're great at it. How are you picking up all, this is how you get your route density. This is how you get everything, because you're all working in the same neighborhood. It's like, can you share with me some of your tactics, your systems? And obviously, yeah, I know I could learn something from that.
Yeah. And that's like, I would say 70% of the calls that I get are for that reason alone. Like, all obviously sales, right? Sales. But even just like yesterday, I got a call just on marketing, like what we're doing for marketing, different ways to market. And there's so many different ways, like that include offline marketing that still work great to this day. So like, I still answer those calls too. Not that I'm not great at a lot of things. I am good at, I have some skill sets, some good stuff, like not finance, but no, go talk to Brian, my CFO, or go talk to my operations person. Like, but the things that I'm good at is sales and marketing. So usually when people are calling me, that's what it's for. And we've built a decent sized business. And so, building the thing is what I love. Like, I enjoy building the team. I love recruiting. I love finding really good talent and bringing them in. And I love acquisitions. Like, that stuff's fun to me, So when I talk to people that have smaller business, like at this stage in the game for me, I'm still working on revenue generating activity every single day. For the most part, like that's my job: marketing, sales, acquiring companies. Like that's my job: building the team. That's what I'm doing now to this day.
Yeah, because you've taken that hat of technician. You're not in the field spraying your stuff, because with Turf Badger, you're not out there spraying. You're not out there doing the things that Turf Badger does. Yeah. Your job is the owner, the operator, the entrepreneur part is not to focus on that work. It is the sales or whatever your focus wants to be. You have the people in place that need to be there to take care of everything else. Your job is to help feed that business, help get new business, make sure, even if you're not operating it, you've got a CFO. Hey, guess what? That's the guy that's taking care of all the finances. You don't have to worry about that part. You don't wear that hat.
As long as I go, I told him, as long as I go to the bank or go to the store, my card works, we're good.
Yeah. And so, like for me, I would want to be the CFO because that's the part that I get enjoyment out of. The sales and marketing, don't get me wrong, there's a thrill in that. But for me, I'm not the most comfortable in that water. And it's like, that's when I would be like, you know what? I'm going to hire Jonas. He's going to take care of all that. He's going to, you'd be my go-to, like I'm just saying, it's like, because that's where your passions lie.
Yep, for sure. And like we talked about this on a lot of podcasts, just like having those coaches and fractional people that can really bring in for a quarter of the price than a full-time person to teach you guys how to do it. It's so smart to do it.
Yeah. That whole concept of having a fractional member of your team is so much more appealing nowadays. And for me, I'm starting to lean in that direction when it comes to certain things. Like, Mr. Producer, he's the producer of the Profits Pajak podcast. it's so much easier for me to give that to him and pay his fees than it is for me to either do it myself or hire somebody full time, and be like, okay, this is what you're going to do. Um, I would love to have a Dalton, but I don't think that's in the cards right now because it's not in the, it's not that it's in the scope that I want to go into. It might be if I continue to do more events and things like, next week we're going to be in the huge convention on Pod Row, which is something that I've been looking forward to, especially with all the speakers that are going to be there. I remember asking you if you were going to be there, and you're like, you got other things going.
They asked me to be, this month's crazy for me, and early next month is crazy for me, so I had to turn it down this time. But I like those guys. I've been to some of their events; they're great. So it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to; I couldn't make it work.
No, I totally understand. I'm not trying to guilt you into it or nothing. But
sure.
it's just like, for those that are listening to this, that type of event is more appealing to me in some ways than like the huge, like a Quip Expo. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love a Quip Expo, but it's more equipment focused, and that's what it's supposed to be. But at an event like Huge Event or the Huge Convention, that thing is like all about like home-based service businesses, and it's not just lawn care, it's pressure washing, house, maid services, things like that. It's the ideas, it's like a thought farm,
absolutely.
In a way, you get to see other successful entrepreneurs in different service-based businesses, and they're willing to share like all the secrets. So it's like, even though you might, like sales and marketing, right? You could look at that and there's a universal truth to that topic, to where it doesn't matter what service we're in. If it's working for one, you could probably modify it to work for another, especially if it's, selling a service.
Yeah, and I love going to events, especially like the Huge Event, because like I said, like my thing now is if I can go there and take one good idea is all I need to take back home, it's worth it. Because that one good idea could make me, lots of money at this point, or change the business in some way.
When we met each other at SA, right? I still have that notebook that I was taking notes from. I was not able, of course, you can't implement everything that was done in an event like that because it's just too much. But I still refer to that. I still have that. That was, do the math for me, what, 6 years ago? Easily. I still have that notebook, and I go back to it occasionally. It's not just like, I'm living in that one. It's not one of the documents I go back to all the time, but sometimes I see that because they gave us it was a nice little notepad. People are like, what? It's like, it was like one of those little, I wouldn't say leather bound, but it was, it had a cover on it and everything, had the logo on it. So you knew exactly what, I could look at it and go, oh, that's when we were at the SA event, I know exactly which one that's from. And I go back to it occasionally and I flip through it and I'm like, oh, we implemented this. This was, this added, it might not be a ton of money to what a lot of people think about, but it's like, this helped generate like $10,000 worth of revenue just by implementing this one idea.
Yeah. And I still, like, I have a bunch of books just like that. And I still like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I'll go back to that book and I'll read through my notes. I'm like, oh yeah, we should try this. Like I have a lot of it notes in my phone at this point too, like at some point, like when I wrap this whole thing up, maybe, I'll write a book, and that's what I'm going to write a book about, is how to build a company and sales and marketing, and from all my notes from over the years,
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a great idea. Instead of it being like, theoretical, or just like a book talking about like, I don't get me wrong. I've got a few friends that have written books, and more power to them. They've done great job with everything. I suggest people read them. I mean, I don't know about you. I know about you. I know you're like, you consume so much content when it comes to books and things. I'm a lot like that as well, where, it may not be a book that's in our industry, but I'll read it and just take things away from it,
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy who, like, if I'm reading a marketing book, I'm going to read 10 marketing books in a row and just dive deep in that one topic. Like sitting upstairs right now, like I just ordered 6 more marketing books by Dane Kennedy just to dive deep back into it.
Dude, I'll tell you what, I've done the same thing. I'm not in his BS books. It was the magnetic marketing.
Yep, I have the book.
That's I just ordered that one a few weeks ago or something. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I have like a couple of his books, and then what's his name? Kalenda, I think, is the last name of the one guy. There's like several books that he wrote, and instead of just buying one and reading it, he had like 3 books that were available, and I'm like, all right, let's get this stack. Why? Why not?
For sure. I love to read and I like to learn, and I've never been the best at retaining a bunch of information. So I have to dive deep into like 6, 7 books in a row. Then it's like, after the first, second book, it like starts to make sense. Right. The third book, I'm like, I got this 4th book. I'm like, and then I retain it well, but I have to hear it like 5 or 6 times too.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm a retention guy when I read something or do something. If I hear it, like audiobooks, everybody's like loving audiobooks. I'm like, I can listen to an audiobook, but I won't retain the information like I would if I would have read it.
So I will literally have AirPods in, listening to the book while reading it.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way I am.
Yeah, I've done that before.
So it just takes me a while to retain it. I've always been the way, but I think it's because it's speculation here. I'm such a quick start. Like I have a hard time sitting down for more than like an hour, and like my brain bounces all over the place. So I'll be reading it, but again, think about something totally different. And then I'm like, shit, what did I just read? And I can go back and read it. I'm sure most people are like that, but I'm just super wiry and bouncing all over the place. So
I would tell my wife all the time, like years ago, like I've gotten better at more focused on things now, but I think maybe that's due to just getting older. But I would be, a lot of times, even this is happening right now. A lot of times, this is a secret. When I stutter, or if I pause just like that, I have like 8 thoughts in my head that are trying to get out all at once. It's like just imagine 8 streams that are trying to come at you, and then I have to decide like which one I should focus on. And I'm not saying that it's like ADHD or whatever it is. It's just I have so much information that I want to convey to people that I screw myself up. And instead of just being direct, I love the succinct speakers that I've met. Like I don't listen to them a lot, but I've like Jordan Peterson. I've heard him speak, and I love how eloquent he is. He could get. He could get his thought process out into the world very nicely. Yes. Like it just flows so well. And I'm like, man, I would love to be able to take my thoughts and put them into the world as nicely as he can. But I think you and I share a lot of that same thing where we have a lot of things going, and it's like, ooh,
yeah.
We're shoving it out into the world, but then it's like there's only one outlet. It's coming out of my mouth, and it's like there's the choke point, and that I stutter, or I pause, or I used to pause for a way longer time. I think it's just because of the podcast. I've been able to kind of work on that by speaking more on a more frequent basis, so I can get my thoughts out.
Yeah, and like I remember, I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I know for sure that I have it, hands down. Like if I were, they would tell me. But a lot of people see it as a curse, and I see it as a gift. Like I get like this morning, I get a text like Beth like, You have way too much energy for me. I'm all over the place, but I get so much shit done during the day too. I just do. It's just nonstop. Everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. It's just how I operate.
And see, that's a great thing about you, because the flip side of that coin is to where you get so you have so much things, or so many things that you need to do, or so many things you want to do, and then you can't make a decision, and you get that analysis paralysis, or you literally just lock up, and then it's like you freeze, and then you let the whole day go by and you don't do anything. I'm obviously, you don't suffer from that, but there's others, and I put myself in that group where we could have the best intentions, but because we're not delegating it properly, or we just can't quite focus on like what should be done first, then you just you might not end up doing anything. So I wouldn't even say finding a balance in between those two is the right thing to do.
I don't think I could.
Who you
exactly.
are.
I was like, I couldn't find the other side of that. Like I couldn't, even if I tried, I couldn't find it.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying, it's like, don't try to find a balance. Just whatever works for you, what motivates you, just do it. And I don't mean to, I'm not pointing a finger at you.
No,
I'm just mentioning to our, the folks that are listening. Because
there's so many people that suffer from the same thing. Like I can't shut it off. Like I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I've already ran 5 miles for the day, and it's like, where are you? I'm like, 'cause my truck's outside. Like, oh, I'm just on my run. They're like, how, like, I don't know how you do it, because I go to bed at midnight, and I just wake up and I'm gone. I don't know. It's just how my brain works, like super ADD. How did the whole Profits of Pajak podcast start? Is that from the Whiteboard Wednesday?
You know what? In everything that has happened, I really feel has happened for a reason. I think I've been on this path. I couldn't see it. God pushed me the right direction. He just got to listen. And part of it, I believe, was at the time I was getting frustrated that I wanted to help people. I just didn't have a voice for it. Like Jonas, I'm sure I think you used to watch me in the Facebook group. And then when I was doing the Whiteboard Wednesdays, it was like, that was something that everybody really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. A lot of people got a kick out of it, but I couldn't, in that particular group, I couldn't do anything with it. I couldn't sell my services. I couldn't do anything to help myself. The only gratification I was getting was knowing that I was teaching and that I was potentially helping others. And then, that kind of disappeared. And then I was doing the coaching and I was charging for it. But then, people are like, man, I just don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you. Are you going to scam me or whatever? It was kind of like a Fight Club type situation where it's like, the only people that were like referring me were people that had gone through it and they were brave enough to go through the whole process in the first place. And there was just kind of like whispers of like, well, hey, you know what? If you really want to understand how to price your services, you got to go talk to Pajak, and that it was just kind of like one of those things. And everything was really kind of slow, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was a good pace, but at the same time, it wasn't happening fast enough. And then when this one company it's Yard Book, I've been doing a lot of workshops. I wasn't associated with them, but I was running the Yard Book user group on Facebook, and it kind of came up in conversation. I was talking to the owner, and I said, yeah, I'm thinking about starting this podcast. And he was like, we'd be interested in helping you out with that. Cool. And I'm like, let's do it.
That's awesome.
I put something together, and then they started sponsoring it, which was
sweet.
That's what pays the for the production of the podcast. And it allows me to really reach out and help more people, I think. So it's like, I don't think anybody could fault me for what I do. It's like, I guess that was something I had to find internally. Like, you said imposter syndrome before. It's like, I give, in the Facebook group, in the Yardbook user Facebook group, I give myself very freely. In other Yardbook groups that are lawn care related, I give myself very freely, and I give good advice. And then, Profits with Pajak does the same thing, to where it's like, yeah, I would like for you to know that I offer these coaching services. But if you're that type of person that'll pick up crumbs and little nuggets every here and there, it's like, yeah, you could go through that long process and still get great information, but it's going to take you a very long time to achieve it. But hey, you sign up for one of the coaching calls and bam, you just got like a whole gold bar in front of you, instead of trying to collect all the gold dust and gold nuggets and then try to melt them down in your crucible to make your own bar. It's like, no, there's an exchange here.
For sure.
But anyway,
I remember when like you said, you remember me watching. I still remember one vividly. You were doing a test of aeration versus liquid aeration versus nothing at all. Like I remember, like I got to watch this thing. So I remember watching that whole thing and like seeing the difference. I'm like, see, I'm not gonna go do them, but there's guys out there that are, and I'm just gonna watch.
Yeah, that whole thing, man. That was a long time ago. That whole. I wasn't afraid to, find out for myself.
Right.
Just to see if it was
worth it.
If it was worth it, if it wasn't, whatever. I remember during that same time period, I did a whole thing where I was growing different grass types.
That too, in cups
inside the house over the winter.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And but anyway, I think like part of it too, going with the podcast, like I said, I feel like I want to have that. I keep giving, and I'm not expecting a lot in return. But it's just, it was just like, you know what, this makes sense, because it allows me to still, I really enjoy educating people. And I hope that the topics that I bring up and the solutions that I present, I hope that they're valuable to people.
Well, I know that they are. And that's why I wanted you on the podcast. I know you help out a lot through the lawn care community. I thought you'd be great to have on the podcast, get people to know who you are. I have people reach out to you, hopefully help you out in any way we can too. That's the whole point of bringing you on here. What does johnpajak.com do for everyone else? Like, since you're talking about it, like, we just roll right into that and just kind of say what your services are, what you do, what your plan is, like how much it costs, things like that. And then we'll have your bio link, everything right through, when you launch a podcast, just so, send people your way.
Yeah, johnpajak.com. That's where people can go to actually sign up for the coaching that I offer. And I've been teasing it for a while, but there's actual online courses that are coming out.
Cool.
I'm still in the process of finalizing it. Jonas, you would have had this stuff done already, because you're working at the speed of light. For some reason, I'm always afraid, in a sense, that I want to give the best information out there, and I want to make sure if somebody buys the course that they're getting like just about everything. I know that's impossible to do, and I just need to execute a little bit more quickly on it. But anyway, long story short, it's a great resource for business owners in the green industry to go. Especially with the budgets, break-evens, and bottom lines workshop that I offer. That's a one-on-one session that I do. You're going to laugh at me, and you're going to be like, I'm nuts. But I literally rip down all the numbers in somebody's business, because before they go, before we even meet, I give them a bunch of homework to do so that they're ready for our call. And, there's some worksheets and things that they have to fill out beforehand. That way we have all the numbers that I need to walk through how to, calculate your payroll, how to make sure we're calculating all the overhead expenses, labor, equipment costs, equipment operating costs, marketing. I can't believe how many guys do not have a marketing budget whatsoever for their business. But there's a whole bunch of financial things that we go through, and the initial call is 4 hours.
It doesn't surprise me.
It's a 4-hour Zoom call. Like,
yeah.
I see your smile. You're like, that's nuts.
It just doesn't surprise me with you. Like, you're gonna go deep on. You're gonna be 3-4 layers deep in each subject.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing. Okay, you think that's nuts, right? On top of that, like, once the call's over, this is why it's more of a consulting instead of coaching. Instead of me telling you to go do the work, I will put together a report. And depending on the size of the business, now this isn't just for like guys that are starting out. I've helped multi-million-dollar businesses really crack down on their numbers, which division's making more money and all that. But I create a report, and it outlines everything. It's like, here's what your suggested price for these services are. And I mean, like I said, depending on the company, it could be anywhere from 35 pages to like 60 plus pages. The biggest one I ever did was like 70 something pages, and tears it up. And then there's more. I feel like that 90s, those 90s infomercials where it's like, but wait, there's more. Then we also have like a 1 hour follow-up call. So, I mean, it really does go deep. It's like pretty much a whole day with me, and you're not spending that entire time with me the whole time, but for me to produce all that, it's really time consuming.
Yeah. So do you charge? Very thorough. You charge I'm assuming by revenue, so that like the smaller companies.
I really should do that. That would be a better business plan.
Because obviously the bigger the company, the more intricacies they're going to have, the bigger P&L, like a lot more stuff going through they have to work on compared to like maybe who's doing a smaller company. You might have a little bit more legwork up front just getting it set up, but just kind of thinking through like the business model, like probably should be based on revenue, like how you're charging.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. I should change that. For all of that, and I'll just tell you flat out, for the amazing low price of $1,000, you get all that from me. Yeah. Some people that is like, they can't even imagine paying that much. Other people are like, yeah, let's do that.
And me, I'm like, yeah, you need to add a zero, I think.
Right. And that's the thing, for the folks that are, they're hesitant about it. Like, ooh, that's too much money. I'm like, I don't think you understand this.
They don't if see you're the not ROI. Profitable, they have to know their numbers. They have to.
Exactly. And that's why instead of saying, hey, this is the Know Your Numbers course, this is budgets, break evens, and bottom lines. There's a whole system. I turned everything that I learned over the years into a full-blown system. So we're talking all the way back from, you got all the experience of me screwing up in the original business that I had, which was Johnny Boy Lawn Care. Paul Jameson makes fun of, he laughs every time I say that name. But, from the failures of that to the Phoenix rising from Turf Tamer Lawn Care, going back to being an educator and going back to when I was in construction, not only doing the work and having the experiences to understand what goes into the work, but doing all the estimates and, doing multi-million-dollar estimates. This is how everything got put together. You know what I mean? It's like, if I didn't do all that in the past, I couldn't be at where I'm at now. And it's like, now, how do you benefit from it if you go through that course?
Yeah, the $1,000 could save you $100,000 or $200,000.
Exactly. There's been so many people that we went to. It was in Florida. I can't remember the convention. We went to it. This is when I wasn't charging money for my coaching services, which was so stupid. But I talked to a couple guys. They were stuck one was, they were like they were under 100,000, per year in total gross. And they contacted me. I talked to both of them. Now I didn't know that, we all met at the same place, but they met each other they were sitting at the same table. They were just, and it just so happened they're like, oh, that's Pajak. And they're like, oh, you know him? It's like, oh yeah, he helped me. And then they started having a conversation at a different table I wasn't even involved in. And I thought they ghosted me. I just didn't know what the hell happened with them. Like, it turns out both of them took their businesses from under $100,000 each to over $300,000 within about a year.
That's awesome.
And it was like, because they finally figured out their numbers. So it's like, what's the ROI on that? Maybe you're at that $300,000 level, but your profit margins are like 4%. That's not fun.
Maybe you should get a point out of all their profits that you add to the bottom line. That's a way to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Like, here, I'll take a percentage of how much we increase your bottom line.
Right. That way they don't have to pay anything up front, but then it's going to cost them a couple $100,000 over the next year. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, man, you got to figure it out for me. Thank you. So from now on, because Jonas just messed up everything for everybody else, instead of getting the low price of $1,000, you are going to just sign a contract with me, and we'll just take 4%.
Perfect.
4% sounds good.
Yeah, they were only making 4%. So even if you said, give them 8%, they're still making the 4%, but it didn't cost them any money up front. They're still making the same amount of money for the first year. Then the second year, then they get the money back.
Exactly.
That sounds like a win-win.
We'll have to work that out.
Yeah, it's like a little built-in equity plan for you. Couple of last questions for you before we wrap this thing up because we're running out of time. But what are the top 2 books you recommend?
Ooh, top 2 books. Man, that's a hard one because there's so many books. Like,
I see the brains are just firing.
I'll tell you what. For general to get in the right mindset, I would probably suggest like the E-Myth. It doesn't matter which version of it. There's like a ton of them. Yeah. The E-Myth is man, what's the name of the author? I'm drawing a blank on it, but that book will really help you understand like systems, and just get in the right mentality of like how you could really break your business down and get out of that technician's mindset and get into a business owner mindset. And I mean, they have so many variations of it. They have one just for landscapers. Tony Bass does a partner, they go back and forth. Why can I remember Tony Bass's name, but I can't remember the it starts with a G.
Yeah, Gerber. Michael Gerber.
Yeah. So that book, and then
I think honestly, I think that was one of the first real business books I ever read. Was the E-Myth.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, pick your poison. They have E-Myth for accountants. They have, I mean, there's like they really took that to the next level and diversified it to try to make as much as they could,
using the brand
each market that they could. Let me see the second one. Man, it's hard to tell because
I always like Simple Numbers, Big Profits is a good one too. Like I'm just thinking I'm thinking more of like on the financial side for you.
Oh, the Crabtree.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a great book too.
Profit First.
Even one of the things, just the Total Money Makeover, that even though that's not for businesses, that's for personal. That's Dave Ramsey book. That is, for me, if you could get your personal finances controlled, it makes your business is going to kind of reflect. And I know I do things a little bit different than a lot of other entrepreneurs, but in my personal life, we don't do debt. The business has debt. We leverage that properly. even though we still kind of pay cash for just about everything. I'm kind of getting away from that because you get to a certain point. It's kind of like if you're smart with your money, you don't necessarily need to finance anything anymore.
Right.
And that's when you get true freedom, and then you could avoid black swan events just like we did in 2020 and other things that pop up. But yeah, you know what? Just real quick, the E-Myth and the Total Money Makeover. If you the E-Myth gets you in the right mindset for business ownership. The Total Money Makeover gets you in the right mindset for personal finances, which then you could figure out this could translate into your business. It's not talked about in the book, but if you know what it takes to operate your household and your lifestyle, then you could know what you should be getting as a salary from your business, and you could budget that into your business budget so that your home and your lifestyle is taken care of and your business does its thing.
That was awesome. Love that. I got a little bomb button. I'm going to drop a bomb. Okay.
Go ahead.
You might not be able to hear it. You couldn't hear, but we could hear it.
I couldn't. You got to push that button, that whatever it's attached to.
I don't know. It's new as of yesterday. I just hit the button. I hadn't hit it yet. That was great. And the last question for you, John. What are you most proud of in your business and maybe personally up to this point?
Obviously my family is my pride and joy. That's my love. Just being a good father has been one of the most rewarding things. And it's a struggle every day. It's not, I shouldn't say struggle, but it's there's a challenge to keeping business and then coming home and making sure that the people that you love are taken care of. I think the most, going back to actual what's my pride and joy in business, it's just the fact that I have it, and that I'm not just settling for what it could be. I'm always trying to just tweak it a little bit more. And instead of, what a lot of people may not understand about me is that my businesses really, they suit me. They revolve around me. I make them do what I want them to do, and not they're guiding me and I'm having to chase them and put out fires and do all the stuff that everybody hates doing. And I think that's, as of right now, that's probably one of the crowning achievement of I've been able to make it what I want it to be and still enjoy it, instead of
the other way around.
I've got this thing that I hate, but I do it because I need to, and I need to make money doing it.
Sure. No, that's awesome. That was a great way to end this. Again, thanks for your time, John. I know you're a busy guy too. I appreciate your friendship. I hope that we get to connect again soon. Hopefully sooner than later. It's been too long. But yeah, we don't have a fee for the show. Just everyone, if you guys learned something, share this show. That's how we, that's why we do it. Everyone asks, why do you even do a podcast? Because I want to level up everyone in our industry. If they can learn one or two things from each podcast that we have, that's what it's all about. We've been there. We've been through it. We want to help those just like we needed help.
Right. Yeah, I definitely, that's exactly one of the main reasons why I do it, is because it gives me the voice. It's maybe not a lot of people are hearing it, but at the same time, the people that are, it could be infectious, and these podcasts stick around. It's not like if you missed one episode, well, you can't go back and listen to it. It's no, if you like one and you like another one, well, guess what? You could, if you wanted to, you could binge these things.
Sure. And if there's a selfish reason that I do social media and podcasts, it's I think of when I pass away. Obviously, I don't like to think about that, but think of all this content that my kids and their kids get to consume of what Dad and Grandpa was thinking at the time, or what he was doing in his lifetime. It's just that alone is so valuable to me. I love it.
Exactly. And I think a lot of us, that's what we want to do. We want to leave a legacy. And especially that, like with the website, going to that's why instead of just being a one-on-one workshops, that's why I want to get the courses done. So it's like, if you purchase it, it's there forever.
Yeah. If you ever need help with the whole courses thing, we built it and done it too. So if you ever need questions with that, just hit me up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have to get you on my show too.
Anytime you want, just let me know. I'll be there.
All right. Sounds great.
Cool, buddy. Good talking to you.
Thank you, Jonas. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the Pest Control Millionaire Podcast. If this was valuable to you, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It really makes a big difference for our growth. And if you do need any help growing your business, go ahead and check out pestcontrolmillionaire.com. We have lots of courses up there, from sales to operations. I have some courses there about producing short-form content. Plus, we have a mentorship program where you can get one-on-one business coaching from the Pest Control Millionaire himself. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.